Hello, everyone. This is Suzanne at the Gospel Truth. Today is Tuesday, February 27th. Wow, we'll soon be into March. Supposed to have a lot of thunderstorms running through Rochester tonight. I think late this afternoon, overnight, and they said snow. I went, no snow. All right. Well, I hope things are going fine with you in your world. I am doing laundry this morning, and my girlfriend that moved away, Karen, I miss her so much. She used to live 2 floors above us. She's coming by to visit, and we had a nice long talk on the phone. Nothing like old dear friends. I really miss her here. All right, we're going to get right to it. We are at chapter 21. We're at 21 and 22 and maybe 23. So we're going to dive right in today. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where is heaven? Happiness is not dependent on happenings, but on relationship in the happenings. My father taught me this when I was just a child. He often told me of the early days of his marriage. He had opened a small jewelry store in a narrow house in the heart of the Jewish section of Amsterdam. Poor mother. She had dreamed of a home with a little garden. She loved beautiful things and spacious views. I love to see the sky, she often said. Instead, she found herself on a narrow street in an old house, the kind with only a single room on each story, with worn-out furniture which they had inherited from grandmother. Yet they both were happy, not because of the circumstances, but because of the relationship of the circumstances. That's so important. There, in Amsterdam, in that narrow street in the ghetto, they met many wonderful Jewish people. They were allowed to participate in their Sabbaths and in their feast. They studied the Old Testament together and, on occasion, even the New Testament. I remembered many times the lessons I learned from my father about happiness and happenings, but never was it so clear as when I was in Korea many, many years later. I think sometimes some of those lessons in life that we learn when we're growing up, they come back to us, and hopefully they are fruitful. And it's a wonderful thing when that happens, when you have that power, that knowledge to draw upon. Why is it, many years later, I had been in the Orient for 3 months, spending much of the time in Korea. While there, I spoke in many meetings in schools, orphanages, children's homes, and churches. One day, after I had spoken in a university, a theological student came to me. I had never seen such gloom on the face of a man who said he wanted to be a minister of the risen Christ. Why is it that you are so full of unhappiness? I asked. I have lost my way, he said sadly. Do you ever feel that you've lost your way? That you're quite not where you need to be in living for the Lord, studying His Word, praying? I think we've all experienced that from time to time. When I first became a Christian, my pastor taught me the Bible is true. In those days, I had great happiness. But now I am studying the famous scholar Rudolf Bultmann, who says our Bible is full of myths and fables. I've lost my way and no longer know where heaven is. That's bad. I was angry. It did not seem right that the simple boys of Korea had to struggle through this horrible theology. They studied many hours at the universities, going to school twice as long as the students in America. Yet, because of what they studied, they often lost their faith. I answered his question about heaven by telling him what I had just seen and heard the day before while driving through the countryside. You know, the universities are destroying our youth. They're teaching them there's no God. They're teaching them all this woke madness. And it's a shame. Parents spend a lot of money sending their kids to school. And it isn't what the universities used to be long, long ago. Okay, there I saw the poorest shack I'd ever seen. It was a tiny lean-to, made from materials collected from the garbage heap. Pieces of cardboard, tin cans, which had been smashed flat, old boards. As we drove past, though, I heard the beautiful voice of a woman singing. Seldom, even in the concert halls of Europe, had I heard such a sweet voice. We stopped the car and listened, for it was like the song of a skylark. I said to the missionary who was traveling with me, "Do you know that song?" "Yes," she said. "It says, 'Where Jesus is, 'tis heaven there.'" Oh, how my heart leaped for joy as I heard this beautiful song coming from such a poor place. It is one thing to hear such a song in a dignified church or pouring through the speakers of an expensive stereo set, but when one hears it coming from the poorest shack in the midst of such poverty, then it means something else. How many of us, if we would get down to all of a sudden we're in poverty, you don't have all your books, your everything you own is gone, and you're living in extreme poverty. You're lucky if you get to eat once a day. Would you still be thankful to God in your meager circumstances? Oh, it would be a huge change, a huge upset in the lifestyle that we know, especially in America. And I always like to think that I would be like Paul, whether I have much or little, I still trust in the Lord. I looked at the young theological student before me. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. Bothman is wrong and Jesus is right. Heaven is not a myth or a fairy story. Heaven is a prepared place for prepared people. Theology in the hands of the Holy Spirit is a beautiful science, but in the hands of unbelievers, it is death. I like this, and I've heard this many times before. Heaven is a prepared place for a prepared people. You can't spend your life being unprepared and expect to get in heaven. You must study and pray and talk to the Lord, tell others about Jesus. Prepared. And this is all throughout the Bible for us to be prepared. All right. If you want to find where heaven is, get out of your stuffy classroom and go back into the countryside. Listen to the simple faith of those who read only the Bible and trust only in God, not in material things. What do they care if some theologian says that heaven is a fable? They have found Jesus, and where Jesus is, 'tis heaven there. It's a good lesson Corrie taught him. All right, chapter 22. And how shall they preach except they be sent? When you are tempted to quit. The enemy tries to make everything work out for the worst. Usually it is not the big problems which depress me, but the multitude of inconveniences which stack up like small rocks to form an immovable mountain. Recently, a series of such small incidents almost caused me to resign my commission from the Lord. Oh my, I wonder what it's going to be. That had to be pretty huge for Corrie to give up her commission. In my journeyings, I often have to cross borders between countries. Knowing that smuggling is sin, I do not do it. My first irritation came through an encounter with a customs official. "Do you have anything to declare?" he asked rudely. "Yes," I replied, "nylon stockings." I had put them on top of my baggage to show him, for I knew that at that time it was necessary to pay duty on such items. "There are 4 pair here," he said. "You told me 1 pair. "No, I did not," I answered. But he did not believe me. For the next hour he searched my baggage. He tried all the little boxes to see if they had false bottoms. He squeezed my toothpaste tube to see if it contained diamonds. He checked my shoes for false heels which might contain drugs. He felt the hem of my dresses to see if I had sewn pearls into them. He almost pulled the lining out of my suitcases. Of course, he found nothing at all, and finally allowed me to pass. After paying the duty on the 4 pair of stockings, I was offended and unhappy. I wouldn't even think to hide stuff in those places. Later, I understood why this incident had made me so upset. I had not surrendered my self-righteousness. I was so sure of my own honesty that I suffered from the consequences of wounded pride. It is easier to surrender one's sin than one's virtues. Unaware of the reason for my depression, I then discovered that I had missed my plane connections due to the delay in the customs office. I was forced to sleep on a couch in the ladies' room at the airport. However, I'm a good sleeper and enjoyed a sound slumber. When I awoke, the amazed cleaning woman, who was sweeping the floor around my couch, said with admiration, "How wonderful to be able to sleep so soundly with so much noise going on around you." Eventually on the plane, on which I was traveling flew into a storm, making me feel airsick. Then, the night following my arrival, there was an earthquake. I hate earthquakes, for they remind me of the bombs that fell during the war. Then, the kind people who should have arranged my meetings greeted my arrival with, "We thought you needed a holiday and rest, so we have not organized anything." Sometimes this is God's plan, but more often it is just a sign of people's laziness to make preparation. So I did not appreciate the fact that they had not arranged any meetings for me. The final inconvenience, the one which caused me to almost give up completely, had to do with my room. My host put me in a small room that had no writing table. Ordinarily, this would not have disturbed me, for I am used to writing on my knee. But on top of everything else that happened, I crumbled like a camel loaded with straw. I blew up. The reason was not hard to find. Self-pity had come into my heart. Self-pity is a nasty sin, and the devil uses it and always starts his talks with poor Corrie. This time he began saying, "Why must you always live out of your suitcases? Stay at home, and then you won't have to travel with custom officials, passports, luggage, plane connections, and other things. Every night you will be able to sleep in the same comfortable bed, where there are no earthquakes in Holland. After all, you are no longer young. You lived like a tramp for many, many years. It is time to hang up your harness and retire to a nice green pasture. Let someone else do the work. You've earned your reward." Wow. Jesus said for us to keep on doing what we're doing to the day he returns. He doesn't tell us to stop, does he? By this time I was nodding. Yes, Satan, you are right. So having listened to his advice, I wrote a friend in Holland who managed an international guest house where at the time I had a room kept for me with my own few pieces of furniture. "I believe the time has now come for me to work in Holland," I wrote. "I am tired of all this traveling, and I cannot stand having wheels beneath me any longer. Will you arrange to have a desk, a big one, put in front of the window in my room, and an easy chair, a very easy one, on the right?" In my fantasy, I had worked out a lovely dream of heaven here on earth, and me in the middle of it. I'm sitting here thinking, Corrie, you've been through so much in your life, and you've done the Lord's work so perfectly. I don't think it's that bad for you to want to work in Holland and minister in Holland. I don't see anything wrong with that, but Corrie has to do what's in her heart and how she feels the Lord is calling her. Each one of us is different. And I think Corrie's very sensitive to sinning against the Lord, as we all should be. But, I'm older and I can't do the things I do when I was younger. But by the power of God, I still do a lot of things. That afternoon, I posted the letter and then came back down to my room to look over my calendar. I jotted down all the names of the people I would have to write, canceling my appointments. Everyone would understand. Had not many said, "Ma, you must be tired at your age." I've thought that with Corrie throughout reading this. And think, would I be able to do that? I think God endows special strength in people to do his will. Everything would have gone all right, or perhaps I should be truthful and say all wrong. Had I not picked up my Bible. This old black Bible had been my guidebook in times of light and in times of darkness. I began to read, asking, "Lord, what would you have me do?" That's the key. When you're distressed and you want to give it all up and you're just tired and old and worn out, ask the Lord what he would have you do. I opened to the book of Romans, chapter 10. "How then shall she call on him whom they have not believed? How should they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how should they hear without a preacher? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things." I remembered the words of a paratrooper instructor. He said that when he had his men in the plane and they were over the battlefield, he gave 4 commands. First, attention. Lift up your eyes, John 4:35. Stand in the door. Look on the fields, for they are ready to harvest, John 4:35. Third, hook up. Be filled with the Spirit, Ephesians 5:18. Fourth, follow me. I will make you to become fishers of men, Mark 1:17. I sat for a long time thinking. It is not our task to give God instructions. We are simply to report to duty. I laid my Bible on the bed, picked up my pen and paper, balancing the pad clumsily on my knee. I wrote my friend in Holland. Forget about that last letter I wrote. I'm not coming home to Holland. I refuse to spend the rest of my life in a pasture where there are so many fields to harvest. I hope to die in harness. All right, that's it for today. We'll pick up with chapter 23 tomorrow. And God bless you all. Have a great day. I hear my friend Karen has arrived. She brought us over some milk and stuff, so that was very nice of her. All right. Prayerfully, I will be back on tomorrow, and we'll continue on with the Tramp for the Lord, Corrie Ten Bloom. Bye for now.